and your family members out there. How's everybody doing today? Yeah, I'm hanging in there. Um, some weird news from the doctors the other day, so I gotta go see another specialist this Friday. So, yay me. Um, but hey, any of you suffer from headaches and not quite sure what causes them? Well, we're not going to get into the medical part too much, but hey, there's a nonprofit out there that does help people with that. So we're going to talk to them here. So, hey, let's go ahead and get this show started, shall we? All right, welcome to another episode of Veteran Central. I am Tim Hauser. I am your Gulf War advocate. Y'all know that already, though. And hey, I got an old friend on the show. I'm not an old friend, but a lifelong friend. Let's put it that way. Some of you may remember him, Mr. Joe McKay, a firefighter from working at Ground Zero, 9/11, and advocated for their health care. Then he joined Burn Pitch 360 and helped us get the PACT Act passed. And now he's fighting a battle that personally affects him as well. That's cluster headaches. So welcome to the show, Joe.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tim.
It's always a pleasure with my friend. So
Yes.
I know, and let people know too, before we really get started, the chat is open. So if you have any questions, feel free, or any thoughts, feel free to put it in the chat. Joe and I will see them. We'll discuss them as we go along. And first question everybody's going to ask, what is a cluster headache?
Oh, okay. Well, a cluster headache, I'll start this way. There are a few different kinds there's actually hundreds of kinds of headaches, but they usually fall into a few categories. There's a primary headache disorder, and then there's headaches that come from other things, something that will cause the headache. So primary headache disorders are actually come from within. It's a brain disorder. It's a pain syndrome. Migraine is the most popular. Everyone knows about migraine, but then there's another umbrella. Let's call under another umbrella called the trigeminal autonomic cephalalgias.
Yeah.
Cluster headache is one of those. It's the prevalency, I believe, is about 1 in 1,000 in this country. The average time to be diagnosed correctly is over 5 years, closer to 6. I know people that have gone 10 years being misdiagnosed. Migraine is pretty bad. There's a lot of veterans coming back post-deployment, post 9/11. Geez, I think the number is 20-something%.
Yeah, that's what I found. It's like
I think
22,
it's like 20-something%. Of veterans that have it. So 27,000 of our veterans have cluster headache. Cluster headache also has the name suicide headache. And unfortunately, it gets that name because the rate of suicide amongst people that have this condition was as high as 20%, greater than the general public. That numbers, I believe, has come down a little bit, but not much. It's arguably the most painful condition known to mankind. I don't say this because I have it. There was a study done by a doctor a few years back who studied almost 3,000 people from around the world that have cluster headache. And he asked them to compare their pain of cluster headache to other painful conditions that they've experienced in their life, like gunshots, burn victims, shingles, kidney stones, childbirth, for instance, was as well. And he asked these people to compare the pain of those painful conditions to cluster headache, and cluster headache came out on top. So that means that there are women out there that say they'd rather give birth than have cluster attacks. They call them cluster headaches because they come in groups. There are two types. There's people that get them every single day. They call them chronic. And then there are episodic people. Episodic people have periods of remission that could last months or even years. And the attacks, if I could describe the pain, it's as if someone had just stuck you with a burning hot ice pick that they just heated up, and it stuck it right behind your eye there, and they're trying to twist your eye and pull your eye out. So this is the best way to describe the pain. A lot of cluster headaches patients feel it most of the time. It's around the eye socket, but it can radiate out the temple and the top of the head. It's almost always on the same side. If you have attacks, it's always going to be on your left side or your right side. And on rare occasion, it actually switches, believe it or not. But yeah, it's pretty horrible to live with. So yeah, that's cluster headache in a nutshell. It's horrible, and like I said, there's about 1 in 1,000, which translates to about 27,000 veterans in this country that have it. And
yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And, I know you're part of an organization that's advocating for, shall I say, alternative treatments.
Yeah, any treatments, as a matter of fact. That's the problem with this condition. Yeah. The problem with this condition is that it's rare, and pharmaceutical companies haven't really put a lot of money and there's no money in research for this condition. I think I think there was $30 million spent in research for the past 35 years on cluster headache, which is basically nothing compared to other conditions. And yet, we all know about Lou Gehrig's disease, right? ALS. The same amount of people in the United States have ALS as well as cluster headaches. It's about 400,000 plus people. And yet nobody knows what cluster headache is, So
right.
It's frustrating. Our organization has been fighting our founder, Bob Wold, back in the early 2000s. When the internet was just, message boards. There was no real, internet like we have today.
Right.
So there was a small group of people, 6 people in that group. And one of them, they would share their stories about cluster headache, and there was no real support groups out there and nowhere to turn for information. So this was the only people they could lean on. One of the people in the group said, "Hey, I didn't go into cycle this year. I'm not getting attacks where every year I get them in the spring and in the fall. And I don't know what happened, but I'm not getting them this year." And the rest of the people in the group were scratching their head saying, "What did you do different? Did you stand on one leg and face north and eat a pickle or something crazy? What is it?" And for about a month, this gentleman tried to figure out what it was. And the only thing he could come up with was that he went to a music festival and he did LSD. Believe it or not, yeah. And the rest of the people in the group were like, "Well, what are you kidding me? I can't, we're not doing LSD. It's like, it's illegal. And they got all these other, nobody wanted to touch it and nobody could find it." So what they did was they found some mushrooms instead, another type of psychedelic psilocybin mushrooms. And all the people in the group tried it. And sure enough, they either went into remission or their attacks their remission was prolonged. And it was a eureka moment because there were medications that doctors were just throwing at them just to see what stick, throwing it at the wall and see what sticks, that old saying. So until that point, there was nothing. So they took this information. He started a nonprofit called Clusterbusters, of which I am a board member today. Here's our logo there with the microscope.
Yeah, let me go ahead and bring this up here real quick.
Yeah, that's us, Clusterbusters. It's
yes.
It's a nonprofit, research, advocacy, and education. But they took that information back in the early 2000s and they went to Harvard, believe it or not. And Harvard agreed to do a study with the research institution in Hamburg, Germany, because it's still a Schedule I drug here in the United States and they weren't allowed to do any research. So the study showed that 95% of the participants had either a total remission or reduction in the amount of attacks. And since that point, they've been advocating ever since. I got on board in about 2017 was my first conference that I went to, and I met everybody there. So that's what our organization does. And we're fighting today to get more psychedelic research. We have a study at Yale University right now through the VA. Dr. Emanuelle Schindler has been doing the study for a few years. She's having success with it. It was a small study. It started out at first, but we've expanded on it, and we're looking for more funding to get more research done. there are also studies being done in Europe as well with psychedelics and cluster headache. So it's
Now,
coming.
her name's also associated with burn pits. I think that's how she got her study going, and then she found out that a lot of veterans were suffering from these headaches, and so
Yeah.
she narrowed her research down, knowing
Yeah.
there's other doctors doing the research for the burn pit exposure. So she narrowed her research down, and from what I understand, she's doing some fantastic stuff. So,
yeah, she's also working with veterans with migraine as well. There's some success in treating migraine with psilocybin as well. One point I'll bring up though, in the VA system in Yale, in Connecticut, they're using synthetic psilocybin, which is manufactured in a lab. It's not the actual psilocybin that comes from a mushroom. They had to do that to maintain a tight, controlled study.
yeah.
But as we speak, we're working with the state of Arizona. There's a some small funding that we got. We're trying to build on it. We're trying to get a study done there with the actual mushroom itself, with the actual full fruited body mushroom, to see how that would work out. So, yeah, very exciting news for people. A lot of desperate people in a lot of pain.
Yes. Now, what's the name of that mushroom?
Psilocybin. It's a psilocybin cubensis. Psilocybin mushrooms. There's a few different. I mean, there's probably hundreds of species. I can't name them all off the top of my head, but they got the name shrooms. That's the street name for them, but they've been used for tens of thousands of years, ceremonially and religion. And actually, I believe there's information going back to I can't pronounce it, but in India, there's an old text. It's like tens of thousands of years old. And they had mentioned in these old texts that there's a certain type of mushroom that helps with headaches. So it's been around for a long time, and it's making a comeback.
Yeah, I just looked up what they look like. I'm not going to show the picture because I don't want people going into their backyard thinking they found the right one and it's not.
No, absolutely not. You don't want to do that.
I'm going to post a name up here on the bottom there. And because you get the wrong mushroom and you're not cured. You're going to cure your headache and a few other things and not know that you cured it. So don't want to picking the wrong one.
Mushrooms, you don't want to go foraging for mushrooms if you don't know what you're looking for. Some of them are poisonous, and you definitely don't want to be messing with those. So.
And then when you mentioned
because there's a lot of people around the country that are working to get to make this accessible in a medical setting, in particular, depending on which state you're in. And at a federal level, also psilocybin, I think it was 2018, psilocybin and MDMA received breakthrough status, which is a status in the FDA will give to a medication that shows great promise. So we got that working in our favor, that the FDA recognized, hey, listen, there's something really, here that we need to look into, and they gave it that status, especially with MDMA, with veteran suicide.
Yes.
That number 22 a day, it hovers around that number. It was a big reason for this, to get this certification. But yeah.
But yep, there's the name of the mushroom at the bottom of the screen, folks. Do your research before you try to go pick your own. All right.
Let's make something clear. I am not recommending anyone do.
Do not do that.
No, I am not recommending anyone do mushrooms.
Right.
But like I said, they are powerful substances, and they're being researched, and things are happening. Go ahead.
And then when you mentioned LSD, it brought me back to a Cheech and Chong movie, with the scene with Timothy Leary. Holy shit, where he's down underneath the pool making LSD, and
there's a couple of good
Cheech is up there swimming on the ladder.
Couple of good scenes from the Cheech and Chong movies, definitely. The borax scene, and
if they only knew back then, what he was doing, I don't think you'd have to be fighting this hard today.
Yeah, we got in the '60s the whole drug war started with Nixon. There's plenty of documentaries out there, that'll give you the history of psychedelics. One in particular is one of the more popular ones now. If you have Netflix, you could look on Netflix for a documentary done by Michael Pollan, who's a New York Times best-selling author. I think 3 times over or 4 times over. He did a 4-part documentary on psychedelics on Netflix. It's called How to Change Your Mind. I highly recommend it. It's really done a lot to change. Yeah, How to Change Your Mind, and it's on Netflix. It's really done a lot for people advocating for psychedelic medicines. Helped a lot in that it's breaking the stigma. Because I mean, I was part of it myself. I was brainwashed back in the day with those commercials. This is your brain on drugs, and and all this other stuff. But it was not. There's good drugs and there's bad drugs. Opiates obviously could be. People do need them. There are people that live with chronic pain that use that, but they're not a long-term solution, and we see that now with all of the issues that we're having with opioid addiction. And I speak from experience myself, because I had been hooked on them myself, and I no longer take them.
Yeah, knowing the situation that I was in and how easily I could probably have become addicted to stuff, I question everything that the doctors give me, so I make sure that I do my research first.
You are your own best advocate, Tim.
Yes. And then, well, the story about my brother Dennis. We'll mention him a little bit later in the show too. I got him. I try to make sure that I'm being extremely careful with everything. So that's another reason people do not don't go pick your own mushrooms to try to cure your headaches. All right.
No.
Seek professional help.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll bring up a couple of points about that. If you're experiencing headache, and it's not like, running the mill headache where you woke up, or you slept too late, or it's bearable, 2 Advil or Tylenol and the pain goes away. I'm talking serious pain day after day, stuff that wakes you up in the middle of the night, a headache that just is persistent, it won't go away. If you have that headache accompanied with other symptoms, get some of these symptoms, I would go to the emergency room immediately. If you have numbness or tingling or anything like that, or difficulty breathing, and you have that headache, get to the emergency room. But yeah, it's important. It's important to take care of it sooner than later, because if you have a headache disorder, the longer it goes untreated, the more difficult it is for doctors to treat you. So if you're experiencing, these headaches, and it's not just a regular headache where you're like, oh, like I said, with the Tylenol or an Advil will get rid of it, go see a neurologist, and if possible, see a headache specialist. The headache specialists, have that training, and they could tell the difference between, these, because like I said, there's literally hundreds of headaches, and a lot of the symptoms mimic each other. A headache specialist would be the person to go see if you haven't, if you have something really, a curveball, where you have no idea what's going on. And by the way, yeah, go ahead, Tim. No, I was going to.
I was just going to say, for veterans out there, the VA does have headache specialists.
Yes,
they do.
Exactly, they do. 2018, I believe it was. I advocate. I'm with Clusterbusters, but I also advocate with a group called the Alliance for Headache Disorders Advocacy, and that's run by one of the top headache specialists in the country, Dr. Bob Shapiro from Vermont. He started this organization a while back, and I joined in with them. 2018, I believe, was the first year we petitioned the VA to open up headache centers of excellence, where a veteran can go get specialized healthcare for headaches, particularly. There were a few. I believe there was maybe 8 or 9 of them at first, but we're up to 19 right now. Last year we we were able to lobby Congress and get them, in the VA to open up some more headache centers of excellence, but it's not enough.
Right.
There's still areas in the country, more rural areas, especially in the Southwest, where you would have to drive 1,000 miles to get to a headache center. There's Arizona, Nevada, that whole area around there. There's nothing around. And I'll bring up a story about a friend of ours, Captain Leroy Torres, right?
Mm-hmm.
Army veteran, and a Texas State Trooper. He traveled the country. Okay, post deployment, came back from Iraq. I believe he was in Balad, right?
Yes.
He came back and he was experiencing intense pain, in his head. He went 10 years traveling around the country, Mayo Clinic and all these other places. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say Mayo Clinic. I'm not 100% sure when he went to the Mayo Clinic, but he traveled around the country for 10 years looking for answers, and he finally got a diagnosis of cluster headache, believe it or not.
Yes.
And he did this on his own dime while dealing with, all the lung issues that you're dealing with too, right? Constrictive bronchiolitis.
Yeah, we
and all
got
these
this.
other
Yeah,
things.
we got the same. Yeah, we
And
got the
there's
same lung
still,
diseases.
yeah, so I mean, those headache centers of excellence, they're run by a Dr. Jason Seco, who's a great guy. He's a brilliant neurologist, and he's helped quite a few veterans over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say if you're experiencing, if you're one of the 27,000 veterans in this country that's experiencing these headaches, go to the VA, and if you can. If not,
Yes.
if there's no VA headache center close by, go see a headache specialist, in your area. But yeah, very important.
Mm-hmm. And if you are in the VA system and there isn't a headache center close enough to you, tell them you need to see a headache specialist. At least have your neurologist say, "Hey, he needs a headache specialist." They'll put in for community care so you can go see one outside the VA clinic.
Yes.
I'm dealing with that on other issues right now, but matter of fact, I've been seeing a headache specialist, but they've ruled out me having any headaches. Well, I have vision loss constantly, and my head and face are completely numb. But the headache specialist says it's the lesions in my head that's causing it, and then the
Well,
neurosurgeon says no, it's
there you
headaches.
go. Well,
So
yeah, this is the issue. This is why you got to see a headache specialist. But also too, the symptoms that you just mentioned could be migraine as well. Those are two symptoms of migraine with aura, and it's every headaches are really difficult to pin down. That's why I'm always talking about the specialists, because a lot of the symptoms are the same for a lot of people, and you really have to drill down to get to the bottom and get the proper diagnosis. So they'll send you down that road for the proper treatment regime as well, because they're different treatment regimes.
I think the hardest thing that anybody will have to do as far as any testing goes with this is an MRI of the head.
Yeah. MRI is the first thing that they'll do to rule out anything major, like a brain bleed or what have you. But most of the time, headaches don't show up on an MRI. I've had quite a few over the years, and it doesn't show up. It's kind of like your brain short circuiting. It was explained to me by a doctor a long time ago. They're still researching the causes. They don't know what causes it, but it's kind of like the way it was explained to me is that, there's a whole line of things that need to happen for you to get an attack. It's like an algebra equation, right? They know what A, B, and C is, but there's D, E, F, G, and they don't know how big the equation or how many, parts. But all of these X, Y, and Z have to happen for you to get this headache. And again, this is one of the problems that we face in headache advocacy, because there's little to no money involved in it. It's an invisible disease. It's not like ALS or any of these other horrible diseases where you could actually see it physically, and you go, oh wow, that guy is in bad shape. But with headaches, the pain is all in your head, and you can't, no one can see it. There's no test. There's no brain scan. There's no test of the pain. So, we're kind of like left out in the cold with that.
Right.
By the way, if you're talking in the United States and globally, for a matter of fact, headache disorders are the number two cause of disability in the country and in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taking people's lives away. I mean,
Right.
as a cluster headache patient, when I had my worst cycle, 7 months long, I had a 3-week period where I couldn't sleep more than an hour without getting an attack. Um, I I was thinking of ways about how I was going to check out. I was thinking to myself, about how I was going to end my life, and I thank God I had family and support around
Mm-hmm.
me, as well as healthcare. you
Yes.
know, if I didn't,
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't have healthcare, I don't know. There's a whole lot of people out there that are in a lot worse shape, than I am. I consider myself lucky, and I'm lucky that I got the
Yes.
diagnosis quick, too. Not like Leroy, who would spend 10 years without,
Yeah. 10 years.
without getting it.
Yeah. 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 Took him and I a long time to get diagnosis for a lot of our issues. And matter of fact, we're going to do shout out to Leroy right now, who happens to be in the hospital down in Texas
Yeah.
with some serious issues going on. So, brother, hey, we're thinking about you. Get better
Poor
soon.
Leroy.
Yes. Now, you mentioned a point that I'm going to apologize to everybody. This is something that I should have done some research into tonight, prior to tonight, into this, and that's that headaches are a leading cause of suicide. I don't know how I did not put two and two together, so I apologize, everybody, and I apologize to my brother Dennis. But thinking about it, something tells me he was suffering from cluster headaches too, because the pain he would get in, and then the mood changes, and the everything, just everything all together. So I think if there was more research back then, and also if we had gotten more involved with him than we did, he'd probably still be alive today. But I think you hit a very good point, and headaches do cause, like you said, it almost affected you to that point, and I know that headaches can cause a lot of depression, especially when you can't get answers. So, um,
Right.
so on that note, let
But
me
there is
bring
hope.
this up. Oh
There is
yes,
hope.
there is.
Like I said,
Let
there's. Go
mm-hmm.
ahead, Tim.
Oh no, go ahead, finish.
No, I was going to say there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of support groups. There's a lot of new
Mm-hmm.
treatments out. It's horrible to live with, but you can live with it and you can thrive. I can point to plenty of people out there that are chronic headache sufferers that are living full lives. So it takes some
Yes.
work, but you can get there.
All right. Let me go ahead and bring this one slide up here real quick. I usually do this at the end of every show, but I'm going to bring it up now since we're happen to be on that subject. And veterans, the number has dwindled down to just 3 numbers now. 988, then press 1. You are guaranteed to get a human, not a recording, when you call now. All right. So if you feel like you are going to hurt yourself or somebody else, please dial 988. If you cannot get to a phone at all, the VA now has a new program that started. Matter of fact, it started on my birthday. My brother Dennis committed suicide 22 years ago this past Christmas Eve. On my birthday, January 17th, the new program rolled out. I'd like to say I had a part in that with all the phone calls and letters and everything, but who knows? But the new program is this. If you don't feel that 988 is going to help you, but you definitely know you're either going to hurt yourself or somebody else, you can go to any medical facility in this country, regardless if you're in the VA system or not, and the VA system will make sure your health care is taken care of. So you can go to any emergency room, say, hey, I'm going to kill myself. That hospital cannot refuse you. They cannot kick you out. They're going to put you in there, and you're going to tell them, hey, I'm a veteran. They are by law have to contact the VA. The VA will make sure you do not have a bill when you get out of the hospital. How good is that?
Yes, very good.
That is good.
Especially not having to worry about a bill either, to make things worse.
Because, with some of the research I've been doing on that, because we're going Veterans Assurance Network's going to be making an announcement about this very soon. Most of the veterans that end up taking their own lives are destitute or on the low income scale. Most, not all of them, but most. And the reason that they're in that situation to begin with is because of their health problems. They can't get work. They can't keep a job because of their health issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people, our higher ups there in the VA and on Capitol Hill need to take a look into that. Because one thing I noticed too, and we'll get back onto our other issue, is we think it's 22 veterans a day. The president, which I called out live on social media, he said it was 17. I called bullshit on that. That I think that number is way too low. Because here's why, people, and we're going to need everybody's help on this. There are at least 10 states that do not report veteran suicide. Ohio being one of them. I'm already working on Ohio, but I can use some help here. So how can they say this is how many veterans on average commit suicide every day when they are not even getting numbers from most of the states?
Yeah. Yeah, I notice I said before about 22. It's part of the reason why. I know it. I know
we're thinking it's closer to 30.
Okay.
Because until this year, they weren't even reporting women veterans suicide. The VA wasn't. They were not including women in those numbers. So they got called out for that too. Yeah.
Yeah, whoever's doing accounting needs to.
Yeah. So we already know how they fudged numbers for us during the PACT Act. How they said this is how many veterans per state are affected by burn pits, and then they put the number up on top. But if you added up all the numbers from each state, it wasn't even. It was way more than what they were saying was total.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can't even get those numbers right, just saying, folks.
No, I hate it.
So now, unfortunately, headache issues are not covered by the PACT Act. Correct?
Yeah, unfortunately.
And I think some of them should be.
Yeah, and I think the number for a headache for disability, it's like 50% with the VA. If you get I mean, number 2 cause of disability in the world, and they're only going to give you 50%, which to me doesn't.
Right.
Doesn't work for me, but it's we're not going to stop fighting for that. That's for sure.
Oh, that's right. We're not.
Yeah.
Adding this onto my list. Another thing I'm fighting for.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
Well, I'm hoping the Air Force veterans from Nevada Testing Range are watching, because I know a lot of you guys are suffering from headaches. So when we go on to Capitol Hill soon, I hope you all remember this and remember Joe and what we're talking about tonight, because this is going to be very important for you guys and women. Joe, I don't know if you know this or not, but the Air Force has secret bases out in Nevada, Area 51 being one of them, where 100% of all people that were stationed there, including civilians, are either sick or dead. and they're all suffering from radiation poisoning. 100%. So we've been doing our Zoom calls with congressmen and senators. There's a congressman in Nevada that's writing a bill now for them. I know a lot of them suffer from chronic headaches, so that's why I'm bringing these guys up, so that they know when we go in person to Capitol Hill that we need to make sure that we bring up these headaches so they can make sure it gets into their bill as well. They can't get health care through the VA because of where they were stationed at. Yeah, they're not recognized by the DOD. But yet, every single civilian that was out there is getting free health care from the Department of Energy.
How about that?
Yeah. So yeah, they happen to call me up and say, hey,
maybe somebody should call Rick Perry, who used to be the head of the organization, right?
Yep.
Well, by the way, Rick Perry's a big. By the way, Rick Perry's a big proponent for psychedelic therapy for veterans. I don't know if you're aware of that, but
yes, his name popped up during my research, and so thank you, Mr. Perry, on this.
On that,
it's yes, yes, it's well needed. Now let's get back to what we were talking about. So, as in your own personal opinion, do you think that, well, we already know they got the headache specialist in the VA, and but do you think there's more that the VA could be doing to help those that are suffering from headaches?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think they should be doing some of their own research as well?
Well,
or at least give information.
Or tracking maybe. But I know Dr. Seco, Dr. Jason Seco, who runs the Headache Centers of Excellence for the VA. He's doing the best he can with the funds that he has. So that's what it all comes down to. It all comes down to funding, and you and I both know it's been in the press lately. They're looking to cut funding from the VA, and they're actually looking to take money out of the PACT Act for it. So it's always a battle for money. It's very difficult to get a study done in this country because you need like $30 million even to just start a study in general, a medical study. The NIH is a source of the National Institutes of Health in our country is a source of a lot of grants that will be a catalyst for research. Otherwise you're relying on private donors to donate money for research for whatever it is. So the VA could be doing more to help people, help veterans with the headache disorders. But first and foremost, by just giving more access, by opening up more centers, around the country. Like I said, there's still a lot of states that don't have headache centers of excellence. So it means that someone's going to have to jump on a plane or drive, hundreds or 1,000 miles to get healthcare, to get answers. So there's a lot more that the Veterans Administration could be doing to help people with headaches, but they're doing the best they can. I know, like I said, I know Dr. Seco, and he's doing absolute best he can with what he has, and he'll tell you himself, I'm sure, more funding would be the answer. But
now, for not just veterans, but for people suffering from headaches, what's the best advice you have for them?
The best advice I have, I would say, if you're not seeing a doctor, see a doctor right away. Another thing, very important, keep a diary, or keep a log about your headaches. This is probably one of the best tools that you could have when you go to meet the doctor for the first time, is information about your attacks, time of day, what you did that day, if anything might be a trigger. There are plenty of great websites out there. National Headache Foundation has a great website. Besides, if you think you might have cluster headache, clusterbusters.org for cluster headache, but
Mhm.
also headaches with a s.org will put you with the National Headache Foundation, and there's a lot of resources, even for veterans. There's a veterans tab on the website, I believe, as well, that you can educate yourself on about these, and don't diagnose yourself, because you'll come
Right.
across, there's a lot of I have one sitting around here. Here's right here's the National Headache Foundation, right? And they make
Mhm.
charts like this, and they'll tell you, it's like a little slide thing, and it'll give you different symptoms for different types of headaches. This is just little tools that that help you navigate the system, and knowing what to do and say when you go visit your doctor for the first time. But the headache diary is very important,
That's
and
good
educate
advice.
yourself. Yeah.
Yes. But remember, do not diagnose yourself.
No.
Leave that up to the professionals.
Yes, sir.
Now, I know it's been a while since you and I have talked, so what else is new with you these days?
Oh, I'm working with a large group of people around the country, in different states, and actually DC as well, to get psychedelic legislation passed. It's my new thing. Having benefited myself from it, um, I had a tough time after 9/11. I had a guy that was working on 9/11. I'm retired New York City firefighter. That day we were in New York City at a golf course, running a fundraiser, and I was going to work that day because I don't golf, but my buddy ended up working for me, Shotzi, and he and three other guys from my company were killed, as well as 26 out of the 343 firemen that were killed on 9/11. I knew on a first name basis. So, when that list came out a few days after 9/11, and his name was on it, and my buddy wasn't a fireman, was trapped above where the first plane hit, Walter Matuza, he passed away as well. Um, yeah, those first couple of months were pretty tough. If we weren't working on a pile, trying to look for remains, we were working in the firehouse, going to funerals, memorials. We had memorials because a lot of people didn't have anything to bury, so we would have memorials for people. And then as time went on, if anything was recovered at the site, some families chose to have funerals. So there were days where within the first 6 months after 9/11 where there were like 8 funerals a day. So it was pretty rough. And at that point, I thought it couldn't get any worse. And then I got my first cluster headache attack at 6 months out. And it did get worse for me. A lot worse, now to deal with all that pain that we all dealt with, at ground zero. Now I had some physical pain to go along with it. So yeah, so that reason, I found after I retired that, I tried the psychedelics, and I had a rough year in 2017. I didn't know it at the time, but like there are certain things that if you have cluster headache and you're using psychedelics, psilocybin mushrooms to help, there are things that could block the effect of the mushrooms. Where it worked for me for a while, and then all of a sudden it stopped working. But I was on a few different meds. One of them being OxyContin and Tramadol, and different types of steroids, and triptan drugs, which are abortives for headaches. And that was actually stopping the psilocybin from working, because in the past I had just the headaches just stopped, or they petered out, or they went down to very, like one attack a day if I was getting 8. But that stopped. I had an experience. I had taken, you don't really need a crazy dose either, a heavy dose. I don't see pink elephants flying around. It's actually kind of a small dose. You could function with it, believe it or not. You don't drive or do anything. You stay home, a safe place. But I had taken a small dose, and I was just relaxing in my backyard. And the best way I could describe it is as if I just woke up, like the old Joe McKay that was around before 9/11, the happy-go-lucky kid that grew up in New York City. He just woke up, and then it's difficult to explain it, but it's like I had this 10,000-foot view of my life, and I could see how how I was affected by 9/11 and a lot of just general trauma that you face in life, especially as a New York City fireman. You see some pretty horrific stuff. So yeah, I had that experience. And then it helped me kick the opiates. Psychedelics helped me kick the opiates as well. So this is what I'm doing today, right? You asked the question was, what am I doing today? And today I'm sharing my story and hope that I could help somebody out there. I benefited. It got me off the opiates, right? It woke me up to the fact that I had PTSD and I sought out treatment, and I'm better for today. I'm much better. And it stopped the pain of the most painful condition known to mankind. That's three things that I could point to directly with me that psychedelics, gave me my life back. So I'm advocating for psychedelics now for that reason. Along the way, I've met so many other people, veterans included, that have benefited. We both know that there are veterans that are leaving the country right now to get this therapy. They're going to Peru, they're going to Jamaica, Mexico, Costa Rica for these different types of
Germany's
ceremonies. Yeah, there are ceremonies all over the place, and there are groups like Heroic Hearts, Jesse Gold and Zach Riggle, just one of them. They're sending veterans out of the country for this therapy. They're sending them to these retreats and these centers. And this, hey, it's great that they're doing it, but we shouldn't have to rely on a charitable organization to help our veterans. We sent them to war. We should be taking care of them, So, so this is a passion for me now, knowing that look, I can't make it. I can't, my career was cut short as a fireman and any first responder in this country or any public servant, we serve. Just like the military, right? You sign on the dotted line and you serve. You're willing to lay it all on the line, and and it's a tremendously rewarding career, it's very important that people that have benefited from these types of therapies speak up about it now, because it's really people are really making a push around the country now to get this stuff passed. We got Tim Jensen and Will Wisner from Grunt Style, along with a bunch of other veterans organizations. General Martin Steele from the Marine Corps, 3-star Marine Corps General, I believe, is working on this bill as well.
I
some other advocates that I worked with on the 9/11 bill as well, that are down at Emory Principe, being one in particular. The secret's out. It's been a while. People have known about it. They talked about it. These researchers have been screaming from the mountaintop for years. Why did you take these tools away from us? We had great success helping people with these tools, but my heart really is being is warm right now because the reception that we're getting from a lot of these legislators at the state level and at a federal level as well. They're very open to it. They know we're in a crisis in this country. We're having a mental health crisis. Veteran suicide being
more than just veterans, mental health in this
first
country
responders too.
No,
absolutely, everybody. It's a big issue, and a lot of our legislators are all ears at this point, and they're willing to try anything. But we need people. We got to break the stigma. If we do it right, these substances can save people's lives. I know it. I've seen it myself, and we gotta educate people, and it has to be done in the right way. So that's what I'm hoping for.
That key point right there. It has to be done the right way.
Yes,
and that's one thing about when we advocated for the PACT Act. We did it the right way. That's how we got we got noticed. We did it the right way.
Yes, sir. That's right. Yep.
We weren't yelling and screaming. We weren't saying we're going to sue this or sue you or sue that or
no.
We educate
peaceful protest.
That's right.
Peaceful protest. Educate the public and keep knocking on doors. Knocking on doors.
Now, since you brought up 9/11, we got to send a shout out to one of our dear friends. He just had hip surgery here just a few days ago, Mr. John Feel of the Feel Good Foundation. Yeah, of course he had to show his scar on Instagram.
Yeah, he's
But
got
but that's John, though.
yeah, he's got quite a few scars actually. He's had a lot of surgeries.
Yes, yes.
If you don't know, John.
That man's going through a lot health wise. That's for sure.
Yes,
But
yes, sir.
but yeah, we're thinking about you too, John. So heal up and
He's a
get
tough
back on your feet
cookie.
here soon, man. Yes, he is.
He's
Yes, he is.
airborne
Yep.
veteran, so he'll be okay.
And
Not worried
all I
about
gotta
Joe.
do is mention his name, and I know you remember my son Zakar.
Mm-hmm.
And
Shout out
uh,
to Z.
oh yes, yep. This is to Z. Every time I mention John Field or John Stewart, he always brings up about wrestling with them two on the lawn of the Capitol building. I got a package from Senator Gildebrand one day, and I said, "Z, look, I got a package from Senator Gildebrand. You think there's something in it for you?" And all of a sudden, he goes, "Yeah, but did she wrestle with John and John on the Capitol lawn?" That's my boy.
Yeah, yeah. We had some fun in between, didn't we? And
Oh
definitely
yes. Oh
in
yes.
the meetings there. But
All right. Well, once again, all right, veterans, if you feel like you're going to hurt yourself or somebody else, please call the crisis line at 988, press 1. No more robocalls, no more voicemails, no more messages. You will get to talk to a human being. If you feel that 988 is not going to help you, the VA now has what they call vet centers popping up all over the country. There's one just down the street from me, about a mile and a half. Brand new, just opened up a few months ago. Any veteran can go in there, no appointments needed. Say, hey, look, I need to talk to somebody. You're going to be talking with a counselor right away. Your family members can go in there as long as their initial walk-in is military related. They can get free counseling at vet centers. You do not need to be in the VA system to go to a vet center. So keep that in mind. Your family members can go in there and get counseling too. Also, as of January 17th of this year, you can go to any medical facility in this country, regardless if it's a VA center or not. If you tell them that you're thinking about hurting yourself or someone else, the VA, regardless if you're in the VA system or not, will take care of the bill. So there's plenty of options starting for us now. Come on. We've all seen the videos lately on YouTube of our brothers breaking down on the highway, crying, cop pulling up, not knowing what's going on. And they're on the phone, 988, talking with a counselor on the middle of the highway. The cop helps them get off to the side and stays there and comforts them. We've all seen the videos. We've seen the video of the veteran who's had the guns laying in the seat, thinking about pulling that trigger because of the treatment he just got at the VA hospital that day. We've seen that video. Come on, let's not be the better veteran. Be better for yourself. Don't pull that trigger. Don't jump off that edge. Call 988. You've seen how it works on video on YouTube. Pull into a vet center, like the guy with the gun sitting on the seat next to him in his car. He pulled into a vet center. He got the counseling he needed. Come on, we've got to stop thinking that mental health is bad. Getting care through mental health advisors is bad. It's not, folks. I go to counseling myself.
Me too. You're not
see,
alone.
Joe goes too.
That's what I'll say. That's what I'll say. You're not alone.
That's right. You're not.
You may think you're in a world of hurt and you're by yourself there, but there's a lot of people out there in the same boat as you, and there is support out there for you. And it does get better.
Yes, it does.
It does get better.
It does get better. Guarantee you, those gentlemen that you've seen on YouTube, their lives have gotten better because of it. I don't say go out and do a YouTube video to get yourself help. You don't need that. but you do need to go into the vet center. Call 988. And I think we just lost Joe, but folks, I want to thank you for listening to us. Joe, here, he's back. Let me bring him back on.
Sorry. Technical
All right.
issues.
Hey, it happens. It's a live
Yes, it
show.
does.
Hey, all right, everybody. I want to thank you all for watching, for tuning in. I wish some of you had put some comments or questions in the chat, but hey, I'm sure you'll do that on YouTube or
Can I get a
on
shout
Apple
out?
or that. Yeah, sure can.
I'll just shout out Burn Pits 360, my Burn Pits 360 peeps. Love you out there.
Yes.
Clusterbusters, Alliance for Headache Disorders, and the Ray Pfeiffer Foundation. RayPfeifferFoundation.org.
Oh, yes, Ray.
That's another organization that I work with. And we help 9/11 first responders with medical needs that aren't covered by the World Trade Center program. And there are a few of them, believe it or not. They don't pay for hospice care, only 8 hours a day. And there's a lot of other things that fall through the cracks. But thank you I appreciate that for the shout out.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all.
Right,
yes. Big shout out to Burn Pits 360, because I wouldn't be doing this show if it wasn't for Burn Pits 360. Amen. I wouldn't be the Gulf War advocate if it wasn't for Burn Pits 360. So shout out to Rosie and Leroy and all the other advocates out there with Burn Pits 360. We love you. And to all the veterans and your families, we love you all too. And next week's show is going to be some more advocating. We are having Mandy. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce her last name, because I know I'm going to mess it up, and I don't want to get her mad because she's going through a lot right now. Red Hill Naval Station in Hawaii. I know you all seen the stories.
Yeah,
you've read about
it's on my radar
on
too.
TV. Yeah. Yep. Veterans Insurance Network is going to be trying to get the word out, help her out with this. If you're one of the few who do not know the story, at Red Hill Naval Station in Hawaii, their fuel tanks started, I believe it was JP4, started leaking and got into the drinking water. And it made everybody sick with a lot of horrible different diseases and illnesses and skin conditions and cancers and everything else. And we all have seen the videos where neighborhoods out in rural America near fracking, they can light their tap water on fire as it's coming out of the tap. Same with these folks. So we're going to have Mandy on. We're going to talk about everything that's going on with Red Hill and how you all can help her. And
I'll be tuning in for that, Tim.
Oh, yes. And we'll also have an update here soon with the Air Force veterans from the Nevada testing range. They're going to have some very important news, so we'll have them back on and a few other people. And Joe, my friend, I love you, man.
Love you too, bro.
All right. We'll catch you all later.
Be good, Tim. You got it.